Hey, this is Mike again. After the last video I posted showing how you can unlock the Phenom II 550 from a dual core into a quad core, I got quite a few people that posted either responses, comments, or messages asking what kind of performance benefit did I get from it, and how much was it noticeable. So I decided to go back, run a few CPU benchmarks in both the stock 3.1 dual core setup and then my setup, which is the 3.7 unlocked to quad, to see what kind of CPU benchmark results we get between the two of them. I also decided to do some kind of more real world applications with a few gaming benchmarks, not the ones like the 3D benchmark tools, but actual in-game ones like from Resident Evil, a Crysis add-on, Far Cry, HAWX, some of the top games, just to see what kind of benefit, if any, we get from gaming. The other thing I'm doing is going to go ahead and render a, sorry, not render, but encoded DVD from XVID format, AVI. So we'll see what the difference is in speeds doing that between the dual core and the overclocked quad settings. So now for all the gaming, I guess we'll start with that since that's what most people keep asking about. With the gaming, all of it's going to be done in 1920 by 1080 because that's my resolution. I'm going to run the test both with AA turned off and then anti-aliasing times 8. So I'll run it both ways, and the card I'll be using is a Radeon 4890. So let's get started.
Alright, first up we have Devil May Cry 4. Not any real difference in this one. We lost a couple frames going from dual to quad with no anti-aliasing, and with max AA settings 113 to 114 with the quad. Alright, next we have Street Fighter 4. Again, no real difference. Slight edge going to the quad core in both AA and no AA. Now here's the game I'm looking forward to, Resident Evil 5. This one I had to run the variable test only because the lock test was only pushing my graphics card about 50-60% for some weird reason. Anti-aliasing 8 times, about equal frame rates. With no AA, we did get a slight edge, about 8 frames per second increase with the quad core. So this was the first game to notice a difference. Alright, next, one of the most visually stunning games for PC, Far Cry 2. I am selecting DirectX 10 option for any game that does allow it, as well as the max texture settings, just to let you guys know. Again, with AA maxed, no real difference. With AA off, a slight nudge to the quad core, but again, nothing too spectacular, just about 3 frames here. And what would any good benchmark be without having Crysis? Here we have Crysis Warhead. Again, with this one, no real difference. We have nearly identical frame rates for dual and the quad core, whether using anti-aliasing or no anti-aliasing. And last we have HAWX, another DirectX 10 game. Again, this one, we did get a little bit increase in frame rate for both no AA and with maxed AA. We had about 4 and 5 frame per second increase. So one of the few games we actually did see a slight difference. Overall, though, looking at the list, not much of a difference over over the list of games here. More or less, it's just that the CPU, even as a dual core, it can handle all these games. It's not the bottleneck. What I'd be interested in seeing is if I had a Crossfire setup with 2 or even 3 cards. I've seen other reviews show that with the i7s and with the 955s from AMD, there is an increase in frame rate because the quad core, I guess, helps um, with the Crossfire. And I even had one of my friends that had an Intel go from a dual core to a quad core Intel, and he noticed his frame rates increase. He has two 4870s, so I'd be curious to see how that would factor in, or if that would change anything. But with a single card setup, going from the dual to quad, and even the slight overclock does not seem to make any real difference. Alright, now we're on to the CPU intensive stuff. Unlike the video games that we just tested, this will not use the graphics card. So the scores that what we're testing here is going to be just relating to just the CPU. We're starting off with Cinebench. It's a popular CPU benchmark. It more or less just renders a photo of a motorcycle and gives you a score based on how long it takes to render that photo. And dual core 3.1, I scored a 6,802 score. Did render the photo in about 1 second. Switching to the quad core and overclocking to 3.7, that same photo was rendered in about 1 second, about half the time. It scored 14,382, so more than double the score. And unlike the video games, this test actually showed there was a benefit to having the quad core. Alright, on to CPU Mark. CPU Mark is another benchmark tool for for your entire system, but there is just a CPU section. It just scores your CPU in a bunch of different areas, mathematics, calculations, and things, and then gives you an overall score. And dual scored 2,107.6 for the overall score. Unlocking to quad and overclocking, again, more than double, just like Cinebench, 4,881.6 for the overall performance of the CPU. Same chip, just overclocked and unlocked. Alright, for the last test, I decided to take an AVI file that I had, about 1.7 gigs, and convert that to DVD. I figured it would be a good real-world demonstration of seeing if quad gave any benefit over the dual setup with this chip. So, going ahead and rendering that or encoding it to DVD, with dual it took 39 minutes and 53 seconds to encode that DVD. With it unlocked to quad and overclocked to 3.7, it only took 29 minutes and 33 seconds. So shaved 10 minutes off the total time to do that. So very obvious that it did give you a real world benefit to unlocking the chip and having it function as a quad and overclocked to 3.7. Overall, I guess what you can take from this, there is a performance benefit to be had from unlocking it. Is it going to make everything that you run as far as games and applications run twice as fast? No, I mean that's just not what quads will do for you. I don't think even if you went to an i7 setup, you're going to notice everything. Well, I know for a fact with gaming, it won't give you double the frame rates. But even for things like encoding DVDs and stuff like that, I don't think you're going to shave your times in half. So it's just not a realistic thing. It translates that way in the benchmark tools, but not in actual applications. So if you guys have any other questions, anything else I can test for you or show you, don't hesitate to leave a comment below or send me a message. Alright guys, have a good night.